Hello, my name is Maya Hampson, and I'm going to talk to you about the research I did on the effects of hand rearing on Siberian tigers, snow leopards, cheetah, and clouded leopards. First of all, what is a hand-reared animal? An animal is considered hand-reared when a human feeds and cares for it from infancy until adulthood. Many institutions choose to hand-rear, but this can cause behavioral problems such as stereotypical behavior, lack of social sexual behavior, or fixation on humans. I first became interested in this problem when I worked as a zookeeper. I worked with a number of hand-reared species, and I noticed pretty much every single behavioral problem that's been documented in the literature. So I framed my research around SSPs and EEPs, since the goal of these programs is to conserve species through carefully managed breeding programs. Hand-rearing can compromise the demographic and genetic management tactics utilized by these conservation plans to establish and maintain self-sustaining populations. For example, with hand-reared gorillas, studies have shown that hand-reared individuals have lower breeding success than mother-reared individuals, and hand-reared individuals are less likely to copulate and breed with other hand-reared individuals. Similarly, for female and male domestic cats, those that were raised by humans alone without conspecific contacts copulate significantly less than those raised by their mothers alongside conspecifics. I chose to look at these 4 species of big cats because I have personal interest in them. Their data sets were very large. They all have SSPs and EEPs dedicated to them, and they are listed on the IUCN Red List as vulnerable or endangered. My research questions were: do hand-reared individuals produce fewer offspring, have smaller litters, reproduce later in life, have shorter lifespans, have higher infant mortality, and how likely are they to raise their own young? So to answer my research questions, I used studbook data from 2011, and I used a database browser to sort through all the thousands of data points and isolate the variables that I needed to answer the questions. I removed individuals that didn't fall into standard gender categories, such as 0 and 1 for male and female. There were other categories like neutered or sterilized, so those were excluded. I also removed individuals that didn't fall into standard rearing categories, so hand-reared and parent-reared individuals were included, whereas wild-caught or group-reared were excluded. So on to results. For age at first reproduction and for longevity, I found no significant difference between hand-reared and parent-reared individuals. Here we have the number of offspring. On the y-axis is the average number of offspring produced, and on the x-axis is the rearing type. The dark gray is for females and light gray is for males. I found a significant difference between the number of offspring produced by hand-reared female Siberian tigers, female and male snow leopards, and male cheetahs, and the hand-reared individuals produced significantly fewer offspring than the parent-reared individuals. The literature varied quite a bit. So some studies suggested that housing breeding pairs year-round could have a positive effect on number of offspring produced, while others said it could have a negative effect. With male cheetahs specifically, housing them in coalition groups has been shown to have a positive effect on breeding success, but I can't say if the cheetahs in this study would have been affected by that. For litter size, the snow leopard was the only species of big cat that showed any significant difference. So for this graph, we have average litter size on the y-axis and breeding pair on the x-axis, paired from female to male. And surprisingly, the hand-reared pairs produce significantly larger litters than the parent-reared pairs. And the literature out there has done very little to help me understand this result, as studies done on island foxes show that litter size can be determined or affected by something as abstract as even wind exposure. So I think for this area, more research is needed to really understand why snow leopards show a difference. My third result was for infant mortality. On the y-axis, we have the average number of deaths, and on the x-axis, we have the rearing type. Dark gray is for females, again, and light gray is for males. I found that male and female snow leopards and male cheetahs have a higher rate of infant mortality if they are hand-reared than if they are parent-reared. At this stage, an infant would still be in human care, which means that hand-reared deaths are being caused by their human caretakers. I did find some literature that suggested that how well equipped a facility is to handle hand rearing has a correlation between how many infants survive. So this may have been the case with the snow leopards and the male cheetahs. Additionally, it's important to note that usually animals that end up hand reared are ones that have been rejected by the mother, and this could be due to an illness or otherwise that had gone undetected by keepers, but that the mother was able to detect, and therefore even the best equipped facility wouldn't have been able to save that infant. So my final result is for generational rearing. So starting across the top, we have female and male Siberian tigers, then female and male snow leopards, then female and male cheetah, and then female and male clouded leopards. On the y-axis is the percentage, and on the x-axis is the dam rearing. The dark gray is hand-reared individuals, and the light gray is parent-reared individuals. So for example, in the top left-hand corner with female Siberian tigers, for a hand-reared dam, 20% of her offspring were hand-reared and 80% of her offspring were parent-reared. I found a significant difference for rearing amongst all 4 species, and that means that hand-reared mothers were far or significantly less likely to hand rear their own young compared to mother-reared dams. This result interests me because the finding that hand-reared mothers are significantly less likely to rear their own young, combined with the indications that hand-reared individuals of some species also produce significantly lower numbers of offspring, implies a potential extinction vortex within zoological breeding programs, and that hand-reared individuals produce fewer offspring, and those offspring go on to produce hand-reared individuals themselves, which go on to produce fewer offspring, and so on and so on. Of course, my study has some limitations. So in pursuit of a clean data set, those that didn't fall within rearing categories H and P or categories 0 and 1 for gender weren't included in the analysis, and I can't rule out that taking out these individuals didn't affect the results. Also, individuals with blank data points for any of the variables, such as number of offspring or litter size, weren't included in those analyses. However, if they did contain other data points such as longevity, they could be included in the longevity analysis. And this means that while some individuals were excluded from some analyses, they could be used in others, and this could have affected the results as well. Some individuals were classified as lost to follow-up, meaning that they were transferred to another institution that didn't keep track of them. So I had no information for the age at death or any other of the offspring they produced after they left that institution. Up to 35% were excluded due to this categorization, which to me indicates there's a weakness in record keeping, and it can be a hindrance to studbook research such as the research that I've done. And while it may not be important for an individual zoological institution to continue to keep track of an animal after it was transferred to another collection, it would be valuable for SSPs and EEPs to have this information. Finally, collecting studbook data yields a robust sample size, which is great for statistics, but it doesn't really provide any background information on the individual, such as how that individual was raised or how much keeper interaction they had, what amount of training they received, any of that kind of background information. So studbooks don't show what environmental or behavioral factors have affected the animal, which limits the conclusions that I can make from my research. In conclusion, hand rearing appears to negatively affect the number of offspring, litter size, infant mortality, and generational rearing for some large felid species in this studies, and the exact factors causing these differences remain to be determined. Declines in the number of offspring and failure to rear their own offspring could be attributed to hand rearing, which could negatively affect the integrity of SSPs and EEPs. I think that further research into the effects of hand rearing on large felids should be encouraged. I think that there's a potential to evaluate behavioral changes and how these relate to reproductive success, and also re-evaluate hand rearing practices for large felids within zoological institutions in general. Finally, thank you to Andrew Kennedy, Christoph, and Nathan for their help with completing my research project. And thank you for listening.